What's good, everybody? Today we are following up from last week with the breakdown of the second round of the NBA playoffs. But before that, remember to like the video, subscribe if you aren't already, hit the bell icon if you are, and you know the drill by now. Let's get to it.
48 views.
So now that the conference semifinals have officially kicked off, the NBA playoffs are heating up. Let's start things off by focusing on the Timberwolves versus the Nuggets, which is probably the most interesting series and the series that has the most people watching. In game one, we saw the Timberwolves take the win in Denver, 106-99, and while Denver played better in the first half, Minnesota had the best half overall in the third and fourth quarters, where they put up 33 points in each and finished the game with Anthony Edwards having 43 points on 29 shots, and Jaden McDaniels actually had 0 points but gave you excellent defense, still was a plus 14, which is great. And Naz Reid was 16 points off the bench, 7-for-11 from the field, very impressive. Overall, the first game was pretty close. The Nuggets had the same amount of assists as the Timberwolves, 24. The Timberwolves lost the turnover game, surprisingly, by 2 turnovers. Denver only had 12 turnovers. The Timberwolves had 14 turnovers. But game one pretty much came down to the role players like we've seen time and time again. On the Denver side of things, Jokic finished the game with 32 points, 9 assists, 8 total rebounds. Pretty good stat line, but for him, that's not that good comparing him to himself. And just not enough. Michael Porter gave you 20 points. Jamal Murray chimed in with 17 with 14 shots. But overall, the Nuggets and their role players, they just weren't efficient enough. They got outshot from the field. They didn't shoot bad. But the Timberwolves shot around 50% from the field. The Nuggets shot around 46%. And Anthony Edwards, just being clearly the best player in game one, was a deciding factor. Game two was not as close, and it actually was a blowout. The Timberwolves scored 106 points again. Strange coincidence, because they also scored 106 in game one. But the Denver Nuggets were held to 80 points, and I don't think I've ever seen them strapped up quite like that. The Wolves were playing like wolves and completely overwhelmed the Denver Nuggets with physicality and defense. The Wolves had a fairly balanced attack, and they only had 4 players in double digits. Anthony Edwards only had 27 points on 17 shots, but that was all they needed. The team overall shot 50% from the field, and most nights you'll take that. Of every 2 shots you take, you're going to make 1. Not a bad percentage. The Nuggets, on the other hand, were held to a god-awful 34.9%. We're not even going to give them 35%. 34.9% from the field, and Jokic had 16 points, 4 turnovers, 16 total rebounds, and 8 assists, which for him is very pedestrian. Jamal Murray was completely locked down, went 0 for 4 from 3, and made 3 shots, but attempted 18, so he finished the game shooting a horrendous 16%. It was clear that emotions were high and logic was low, as we even saw Jamal Murray do something that we thought we would never see a player do, hence there being no rule or precedence for it, which is throw a heating pad onto the floor. He was fined $100K for that and avoided getting suspended, and is very fortunate in my opinion. So in game 2, the Nuggets were just not able to give Jokic any help outside of Aaron Gordon, who actually had a really good game, went 8 for 14 and dropped 20 points. But this game was over before it started, considering the energy that the Timberwolves brought and the Denver Nuggets just could not match. And I'm not sure that the Nuggets have gotten punched quite like this before or faced a defense like this since maybe the Lakers in the bubble, where they had the sort of bodies that the Timberwolves are bringing now with JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. Going into game 3 on Friday night in Minnesota would be the biggest game that the Denver Nuggets have ever played up until this point, and absolutely 100% the most pressure that they've ever faced in this recent Denver Nugget era. And as expected, the Denver Nuggets threw their best counterpunch back as a champion would, and they came out on top and won this game 117-90 and pretty much dominated the Timberwolves like the Timberwolves dominated them in game 2. Jokic played well. He still didn't have an overwhelmingly impressive stat line. He finished with 24 points, 9 assists, 14 rebounds, but Jamal Murray finished with 24 points on 52% shooting from the field, and the rest of the Nuggets starting 5, the other 3 players, also finished shooting 50% or above, and all were in double figures. The Timberwolves didn't shoot or play bad. Anthony Edwards had 19 points on 15 shots, and 3 other starters were in double figures. But it seems that there was a change in how the referees were officiating, and it seems like the Timberwolves were having a hard time adjusting to more ticky-tack calls being called, and that definitely favored the Denver Nuggets. The Wolves are still in firm control of this series, leading 2-1. Game 4 on Sunday night, I expect both the Timberwolves and the Nuggets to bring their best. And this game, I think, will be closer to Game 1 than Game 2 and 3, where we both saw blowouts on either side for both teams. Either way, I am going to go with the Timberwolves for Game 4. And I think we're in for a long 7-game series. And I'm also going to take the Timberwolves to win the series outright, for 2 main reasons, and that is Ant-Man Anthony Edwards, and reason number 2 being the amazing defensive pressure that the Timberwolves are capable of putting on just about any team.
They're not going to change their aggressiveness. They left them alone. Joker missed it, tipped it home, and Jokic now with a 20, 12, and 9 stat line tonight.
All right, let's talk some Mavericks, Oklahoma City Thunder. And right now, this series is probably the second most interesting series to me, purely because you have Kyrie and Luka versus Shea and Chet and all the young players that the Thunder have accumulated. In Game 1, we saw the Thunder take the win, 117-95, and Kyrie had 20, but Luka had an off game, 6 for 19 overall, and not very efficient. He shot 31% from the field. Not good. Shea's been the MVP caliber player that he's been all year long. Dropped 29, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. And Chet piled on with 19 points and 7 rebounds. This Oklahoma City Thunder team is young. They're very well built, versatile. They have length, and they're going to be hard to stop. In Game 2, the Mavericks bounced back, and it seems like Luka figured something out. Kyrie only had 9 points. He did have 11 assists. But Luka bounced back and had 29 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. Shea went off again and had 33 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. But the Mavericks just had the better second half, where they scored 51 points total, and the Oklahoma City Thunder only managed to score 48. Going into Game 3, the series is tied 1-1, and the Mavericks got the win to take the 2-1 series lead. So far, the defense that the Mavs played against the Clippers in the first round doesn't seem like it's carried over to the second round against Oklahoma City, as the Mavericks have allowed 117 points in Game 1, and then they allowed 110 points in Game 2. I think the Mavericks can win this series, but I think in order to win this series, they're going to have to put the same effort in on the defensive end that they did with the Clippers. So let's switch gears real quick and move on over to the Eastern Conference Semifinals, where we have the Pacers versus the Knicks. The New York Knicks currently lead the series 2-1, and Jalen Brunson has been doing Jalen Brunson things. And the Knicks also win Game 2. The Knicks won Game 1, 121-117 behind Brunson's 43-point performance. Game 2, Tyrese Halliburton dropped 34 for the Pacers, but the Knicks still won, 130-121. And in Game 3, the Pacers finally got a win, 111-106, and the series went from being 2-0 to 2-1, with the Pacers finally grabbing a win. Now, I'm not sure how much cachet I should be putting into the Knicks, but I definitely think they are going to win this series. When you look at their player averages, Brunson's averaging 32.7. Dante DiVincenzo's averaging 29.3 points. Josh Hart is averaging 17 points and 15 rebounds. OG Anunoby's giving you 20.5 points. And then Isaiah Hartenstein's giving you 11 points. This team is deep and they're playing, and it seems like they're not ready to go home yet. As for the Pacers, their averages look pretty nice too. Tyrese is giving us 25 points and 8 assists. Siakam's giving you 19 points and 7 rebounds. Miles Turner's giving you 16 points, 6 rebounds. But the main point with the Pacers is I still feel like this team has another gear to kick things into to get back to the best version of themselves, similar to what we saw earlier in the season back in the in-season play-in tournament. At the time I'm recording this video, Game 4, Knicks and Pacers, is going to kick off later this afternoon. And I'm going to take the Knicks to win this game and put the Pacers down 3-1, just like they did with the 76ers in the first round. Moving right along, the final game for us to cover in the conference semifinals is the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this should be the most predictable series, with the Celtics winning in 5 games or less. But after winning game 1 in Boston by 25 points, they go on to lose game 2 by 24 points. So there you have it. The series is tied 1-1. I like to believe in the Celtics, but something just isn't right with them. They have a bad habit of playing down to their competition and being inconsistent, and this game 2 versus Cleveland in this round reminds me a lot of game 2 in the last round versus the Heat, where they dropped that game and didn't even have to face Jimmy Butler. In game 3, the Celtics bounced back to take the series lead 2-1, but what did we truly expect? I mean, they have the more talented team, and they certainly could not lose control of the series and allow the Cavaliers to go up 2-1. That would have been a nightmare. And with that, that concludes our overview, breakdown, and updates on the second round of the NBA playoffs so far. Based on what we've seen so far, I really think the NBA championship is going to go through the West, because the East just has more injuries and just hasn't demonstrated the same level of consistency, generally speaking. Let me know what you think about the second round or conference semifinals of the playoffs so far in the comments below, and we will pick this back up next week with more playoff action. Until then, everybody stay safe and have a great weekend.
48 views.